Okay, this is the March 8th, 2025 meeting of the Monmouth Planning Board. Stephen O'Donnell, Chair. We have Dave Shaw, Dave Mills, Rick Grant, Larry Saucier, Ray Simon here in person, and Bonnie Green on Zoom. So all the members are here. We don't need any of the alternates to vote. We have minutes from prior meetings. Looks like at the last meeting, the March meeting, the March minutes weren't reviewed. Is that what happened? Any issues? Do we have a motion on the March minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes of the March meeting.
Any second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor of accepting those minutes? That was unanimous. And then the April minutes, I wasn't there at that meeting, so I will abstain. Is there any motion on the April minutes?
Motion accepted.
Any motion?
Second.
Larry second. Any discussion on those? There being none, all in favor? So 4-0. Well, who voted at that meeting?
Bonnie.
Bonnie, you can
All set.
approve the minutes?
Yep.
So Bonnie voting, so it's 5-0. I abstained. Dave was not a voting member for that meeting. Okay. Then we can move on to old business and it. Back to the agenda. So, we have the 1063 Main Street project brought by the LLC of the same name. And I understand there's been kind of a significant amendment at this point, or I guess a request for phase one approval. Jim, you have
Yes, sir.
attention.
Yeah, we came last meeting and we explained it then as well, Mr. Chairman. 14 lots and then an identical location. They were where they were for the 63 lots. So 1, 2, 3 plus the 11's 14. The only changes that we made since last meeting, we looped the water all the way over to Main Street per Dan Wells of the Winthrop Utility District. Just some blow up so you can see a little better. This is the main entrance we'll be using for phase one. See the houses, the grading, the ponds. This is the other end, and of course, I want to show you utility plan showing the water and the sewer and the electric. Once again, the ponds. And then that's the other end. Here's where the water ties back in. That'll be the second road that gets put in for phase two. I'll answer any questions. We've been here many times.
Yeah. And my understanding is a lot of these changes are a result of DEP looking at this and.
It's actually Bill, DEP and the phosphorus issue we have. This is our easy way out for now to get us moving and not have to wait 6 months.
Yeah.
We do have to file a notice of intent with the DEP as well as a stormwater PBR. And they'll review that then. It's a 14-dayer on both.
That's a permit by rule.
It's a stormwater permit, correct? We met with Bill out on site. Bill was worried about this area up above coming down and being part of the ponds and everything. And we showed Bill this ditch here. And I didn't realize how deep this was. I thought it might be a foot or two. This thing's deep. It's more like 3 or 4 feet down. So there's nothing that's going to get by this and we're not touching it. So it's going to continue to go to Main Street during this phase. I'll let Bill talk about it if he wants.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns is because they say that if you're going to be putting in, like things like, underground soil filters to treat your developed area, if there's upland area that is contributing to that, you also have to account, to a degree, that the water load that is coming from the upland area to make sure that your ponds aren't overwhelmed by all that runoff. Otherwise, you have to divert that water. Well, they have a natural diversion here, and at the last meeting, Jim had mentioned that was the case, and so they invited me out for a site visit the next week, and we went out there, like Jim said, it's probably a 3 to 4 foot deep ditch, and it's probably close to 8 foot in width at the top, at the banks. So it's not a little ditch. And it should intercept anything coming down. It actually plateaus up at the top, but it should intercept everything there, run it down, and then send it underneath Main Street. And that's just natural flow anyways. I mean, that's happening right now. I mean, that ditch is there. So it's just that land is not going to contribute to having to worry about sizing those soil filters to accept that runoff. So based on what I can see and looking at Jim's calculations for the treatment factors and the size of the soil filters, they seem absolutely adequate in for the area and that's contributing from the project. So
I also want to thank Dave for showing up, representing the planning board as well. He was at the meeting. Well, that's good.
Yeah. And I remember you had to you kind of made some accommodations to some of the neighbors when you were back before, whether fencing that you were doing.
Yeah, that would not be during this phase.
Because it doesn't affect that.
Correct. It would not happen now. And I can't speak for the developer.
Right.
I mean, that's.
But it's not necessary.
We met with both neighbors, if you will, and they both had a couple issues, wet backyards and stuff like that. So, yeah, I met with both of them.
Yeah.
But that was done before. We haven't done anything on that land. That really happened right before the sale of the property,
Yeah.
to my clients.
This doesn't really change in any significant way the homeowner's agreement that you filed or anything else. Project is still basically senior housing.
Correct. Everything's the same.
Sure. Can I chime in? for a
Sure.
second here? So at the last meeting, we had a conversation around, is this a significant enough change to warrant like an amended application, full new application to be
Right.
submitted? What I had advised the applicants was the lots are all in the same place, the roads are in the same place. There's no changes to the roadway plans for Austin Way and the other street that I can't remember right now. So I had advised them that just submitting this revised version and we would update any changes for the record.
And we sent notices out. We decided at least to send notice by regular mail to the abutters. And the ordinance really, in terms of larger subdivisions, I think our ordinance actually encourages phased development sometimes because, it allows someone to get started on something and see what the impact is and how they want to proceed. And so I think we felt appropriate to go forward with just treating this as the number of lots to be approved.
And I just want to note that this is a little bit, they are only before us for the 14 lots.
Right.
Any changes,
We'll have to come
additional
back.
lots would need to come back. And yes, we sent notices after the previous meeting and those were mailed on April 22nd,
Yeah.
so well in advance.
Well in advance.
And I will note that not one of them came back.
Oh, good. We did better on maybe these and these certified mail ones. Anyone, Dave?
I've got a question about the end of the road when you come down.
This end over here or this one?
No, you go down that road, take a left,
Oh, you're gonna take a lot.
you have to go all the way down,
Yeah.
right there. is that a large enough area for like an emergency vehicle?
Oh, yeah,
like a
that's
fire
it's
truck to turn
overbuilt, if
around?
anything, without question. Tony the plan sent me the three options I had. I can do a cul-de-sac, I can do a T-turn, I can do a hammerhead, and that meets the hammerhead requirement.
Okay. And then, in part of the write-up up on page 7 about the homeowners association, that it states that the streets are gonna be done to the town specification and that, and then it says they're gonna petition the voters to take over the maintenance of the streets once the phases are done. So is that only at the very end after you've developed the rest of it, or is that going to be?
So he's wondering if you're gonna petition the town, take over the road when it's not fully done after phase one.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna wait till the end.
Okay, all right.
And that requires a municipal vote.
Plan was what
That's way down the road.
Yeah,
the HOA governed the whole thing themselves. It was never a plan to try to get the town to take over this road ever. When I first met with you guys, I think you said you hadn't taken over.
I haven't, I don't think they've
40 years,
approved,
Weren't even gonna try to attempt it. Not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
We're still building it to town spec. though.
right, which is good, because then it's, you know, you've got that possibility if you need it.
Yeah, no intention of going that path at all.
Ray, anything that you're concerned? Question?
The only thing was the noise level that I threw at the developer.
Noise level?
Yeah, so there's a draft, in the draft findings that were included in the meeting packet, also posted on the website. There's a draft condition of approval around noise, and it advises that the applicants as well as their contractors are advised to familiarize themselves with the noise ordinance. Ray pointed out that the noise ordinance doesn't specifically govern construction because that's an exempt noise,
Yeah,
except for the timing. So if you want to remove reference to the contractors, I'm open to that, but they should be advised that you can't be out there before 6:30 AM and after.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just decency. I mean,
yeah,
what the good thing about today is, guys, is 90% of the contractors, the contractor, has battery powered tools, so there's no generator out there at 7 o'clock in the morning going, you know?
yeah. Well, there's always some noise during construction.
Well, that's right, but we're not proposing to do weekend work and, you know, jam this and do that, and plus, let's face it, folks, the labor market is pretty tough right now. I don't know if we can find anybody working on the weekends anyway.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
You may have to work on the weekends if the weather keeps up.
Yeah.
In front of her, holy cow. No, we've done this plenty of times before. We know how to treat neighbors and not make noise, and, you know, it's a common courtesy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys get done roughly, all the crews get done between 3 and 3:30 every day. Cause they start at 7, they get there, they mess around, they start actually working at 7:30. They have their break, they have the lunch break, they get done 3:30, pick up, and they're usually gone.
Any members of the public or audience on Zoom have any questions, comments? I guess we're,
I just want to make a couple comments.
sure,
Just a couple, and I talked to Jim today about it,
yeah,
and he put my mind at ease about some things. I just wanted to make sure that the big 5-inch 3-ring binder that was the original application had a section 14 on maintenance and inspection logs and everything for these soil filters, et cetera. I just wanted to make sure that those conditions that are in that application are still part of the application. He said they are.
The maintenance agreement
The
basically
maintenance
on,
agreement, right?
exactly, 100%.
Yeah, and yeah, the frequency of inspections,
Without
et
question.
cetera, and all that. And the other one was, just to make sure that there are deed restrictions on the 14 lots, that there are phosphorus fertilizer restrictions to be imposed on those. Because the export coefficient for lawn that is being used there is the low export coefficient. for the hydrologic soil group D, which are the wet soils that are out there,
Which means like.
it's 0.4 is the low export, 0.8, that's pounds per acre per year. They're using 0.4, 0.8 is if there are no restrictions on fertilizer use. And that's critical here because the project is allowed 1.02 pounds a year.
Yeah.
They're exporting 0.9 roughly, so they're under it by about 1/10 of a pound. However, if there were no restrictions put on the phosphorus fertilizer usage on the lots with by deed restriction, that's in the manual, you would have to apply to 0.8 instead of the 0.4, and that raises the phosphorus from the project by over almost over a third of a pound, which then would exceed the project's allowable phosphorus budget. So there has to be some,
Right.
deed
Yeah, would
restrictions.
that be like, you're talking about like lawn services coming in, no?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, or anybody even that applies it, if they don't hire a lawn service, it says that I guess the developer can use phosphorus fertilizer to get the initial lawn started on bare ground.
Right.
But after that, then there's restricted use on phosphorus.
What about hydro seeding?
It depends, I mean, well, you gotta make sure that there's no phosphorus in it, okay, so.
So is that something should we can write into the HOA if we have?
Yeah, that,
Ought to be written into the.
it should be in the HO.
Yeah, it's right in my,
It's right in the, well,
Section
the DEP
14.
It's right in the DEP guidelines, I have it right here.
Exactly.
In volume
Because we're in
2,
the HOA,
it
so-
says that it has to be deed restrictions for each lot.
Correct.
Now, I mean, if this is a homeowners association where
Well,
you had like one common landscaper who was doing everything, that would be an easy thing to control.
decision.
The thing about this is almost
That
not
recording.
because property owners can
But
hire
it's not on
anyone they wish.
visual.
Or they can go down to Odessa, hardware,
Highlight.
buy phosphorus fertilizer,
Right.
and who's gonna say, hey,
So we want
to
wording.
I'll tell you how you know is if 30 weeks don't use it, one does,
Right.
see the real. No, but it's just, it's.
So what you're saying is make it, the wording is clear and.
I'll give you the literature on it if you want to,
Yeah,
and I'll have you look at it.
yeah, it just says in there that has happened, I'm double checking your numbers. This meeting crept up on me. I did not expect the meeting of the planning board on the 8th of a month.
Yeah.
It's the earliest second they can be.
Yeah, I can't-
So I thought I had a little time to look at this, but, so no, I looked at it again and I looked at the 0.4 and then I looked at the table in the manual and it's either under hydrologic soils, group D soils, which these soils are. These
So
soils
Bill,
are.
let me ask you, if we had one company doing this, aren't they licensed and they should know these things and not do this stuff?
Well, they wouldn't know it unless you would tell them.
Tell them, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't.
Yeah, because not all subdivisions, I mean, if you were to not restrict phosphorus fertilizer, you'd be putting in the
But I mean, like,
0.8 pounds per
These
acre.
these contractors that are around me, these landscapers and stuff, in a watershed district, don't they have to go by certain parameters? No?
I wish.
There's no one to look over the shoulder.
I'm not trying to be a hard guy, I'm just.
No,
Put on the
no.
front side, 1063, a non-phosphorus community.
Like that.
There you go.
No, I mean,
Well, we put in the HOA, doesn't it?
this all started around 20 years ago. DEP was requiring a lot of purveyors of fertilizer to lawn fertilizer, whether it's Paris Farmers or anything, to make phosphorus-free fertilizer available. And then they had to put in signs, they had to post signs stating that the DEP doesn't prohibit, but they recommend in lake watersheds to use phosphorus-free. Now, I understood almost 20 years ago, because I know it was around 20 years ago, because I had an Annabescook Lake project, and we actually went to Paris Farmers and Ace Hardware, and they gave us their inventory of what they were stocking and what they were selling. We wanted to see if people were reading the signs. But I had heard that because Maine has so many lakes that are sensitive, and that so many lake groups were promoting phosphorus-free fertilizer, as was DEP, that Scott's was stopping selling regular fertilizer, I mean, with phosphorus, because they didn't want to, try to figure out, okay, we're gonna do 40% phosphorus, 60% non-Maine, you're getting no phosphorus, whatever. I don't know if that's still the case, but it used to be early on, you saw the white bags instead of the solid green bags. the phosphorus was free was the zero. That's in the three numbers, you know, the zero is phosphorus in the middle number.
So this would only apply to established lawns?
Yeah, once you get it established, yeah, I mean, the last thing you want is no lawn, because then you get erosion, you don't have
Right.
roots. You want to establish root growth and get a lawn growing. And then once you get that, you can, most of our soils here, especially around here, in this area, in Anabescook watershed, with a lot of marine blue clay in this whole area in here, and that's high in phosphorus in the whole Cobussy area here, so.
All right, so basically put it wording that once they want to establish, try to use low phosphorus.
Right.
Like you said, it's almost non-enforceable, but if you put the wording in there, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Is it phosphorus free or just low? What would you?
No, phosphorus free, I mean, that's, yeah, it's restricted.
Why don't the manufacturers just make this simple and make it like that? So we don't have any choice.
Because there are people that aren't under restriction and they want a really, really nice looking lawn. So it's, and they're all over the lakes around here too.
I mean, we live in Maine, we got grass
Yeah.
for 3.5 months a year.
Yeah, I know, but-
That's it.
Yeah,
How nice can you
but,
make it?
no, I guess the point I'm getting at is that if it was a difference between 0.6 pounds per acre and 0.8, it's not a big deal, but it's the difference between 0.4 and 0.8. So it doubles the phosphorus export if you use phosphorus fertilizers. And because lawn, in the subdivision is one of the largest areas of land use. So that doubling of the phosphorus from the lawns alone makes a big difference, so.
You have standard language that you could provide around that?
I don't, but I can find some.
Well, I think we'd say,
I'll send you my stuff.
only phosphorus-free fertilizers to be used on established lawns.
Yeah,
So most of this development as
Yeah.
proposed is really on the 14 lots.
right.
So it's not like there are gonna be common areas right now used as lawn.
No.
But I mean, if we use the word established lawn, I don't know if there's another better word to use than lawn. Another,
Certainly not gonna plant any areas but what is shown on the plan.
for now.
They'd be just throwing their money away, think of that.
Because you'll be digging it up potentially and maybe in the future.
I mean, again, you don't want a lousy lawn. If it's supposed to be grass, you want it to at least have good roots and good of ground cover. I suppose there could be some language. Jim might be able, he says he's got some language.
Yeah, if you got some language.
I'm sure DEP can give me, I'm sure they have it all the time. But I'm not, you know, if you say you can never use phosphorus fertilizer, it could be unless deemed by a soil scientist that the soils are deficient in phosphorus and need at least some boost to get growing. I mean, it's.
Well, we use the word established. I mean, I guess the question would be if you put it in the winter and something, you get a lot of winter kill, what happens then?
Yeah.
When you're trying to regenerate that lawn.
I think the key word is establish.
Yeah,
It just says right here, this is it from DEP's manual, it's just a sentence, this is, chapter 3, meeting the project phosphorus budget, just as a low export option, which is what they're using, may be selected for commercial/industrial development and roads if all of the following are incorporated: a deed restriction prohibiting the use of fertilizers containing phosphorus except when establishing new turf or vegetation on bare soil will be established for all lots. And then somewhere else it mentions
I think that would be a better terminology. You could use that.
again, that's something that's it's something that what are you gonna have people have to show But their receipts from what they purchased for fertilizer.
I don't know.
If you go check through their garbage and see if there's a bag, or something.
Well, some people tell me, depending who's in charge of the homeowners association, it can be quite well pleased. It depends, I suppose.
I guess all we can do is put the wording in there.
That's right. People are gonna,
All we can do.
yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, I mean, that's,
Well, and if they understand the reason for it all, that sometimes that helps, but.
but those were the only concerns, that I had. Just pretty much just that the chapter 14 or section 14, maintenance and inspection logs were still in place. I thought they were pretty, comprehensive and were right in line with what was recommended in the DEP manual. And,
That hasn't changed. That part of the application.
no, that hasn't
Yeah.
changed, okay.
Okay.
So I have a question. When you met with the water association, we asked you for the draft language for your low water pressure agreements to be put in your deeds. We have not seen that yet.
What we did is we put a note right on the subdivision plan. I can read it to you if you want.
Because we, as the water association board, have to approve it.
Right, so it says this, the water pressure along Main Street is only 20-30 PSI. Should a house not have enough water pressure available, a booster pump will be installed by the developer to address this issue.
It also has to be in there in the deed.
Correct, right, but this is also in the registry too.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Is that outlined in the letter that was initially sent on this application?
No, because that time we did not know
Right.
that was gonna be.
It's gonna be in the deed. Each
Thank
lot.
you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Okay, very quickly, looking through, Isabel, your, findings of fact. Number 3, it says an application for service for Monmouth Sanitary District. If that's been, obtained, and the stormwater permit by rule number 5 approved. And then number 6 has to do with what you were just talking about, Monmouth Water Association. And whether or not, I mean, I heard what you said about putting in the pumps, but does the Water Association need notification? Do they need that in writing?
Yes.
And has that been, all of those things, it says this must be approved, this must be received, have those things happened?
well, a lot of it's prior to issuance of building permit. They gotta have that permit by rule.
These are suggested conditions.
Right, so. And I think what we're saying is that, yeah, probably, we would say maybe something to the effect that we would need an updated letter from the water district that they are satisfied with steps taken to address low water pressure.
Okay.
Pending this approval, we'll be in touch with them soon.
Yeah,
We have to
so-
bring water across the street and all the impacts.
Yeah.
That's gonna be in the works very soon.
We have that.
Very-
Just when you go to get the building permit, they want to see that letter is there and shouldn't be a problem. This comes up all the time, something like this.
How I outlined it was that it will be addressed to the.
Up in the sewers on the other side. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right, yep.
Association.
Yeah,
I put in there
yeah,
that a
absolutely,
letter
yep.
shall be provided
Yeah.
to me, if that would be.
Yeah, I think that would be good, wouldn't it, Bonnie?
It's all required pending, Andy before he can issue a permit.
Yeah.
Right, so these are the lists that Andy needs to know that he has to check for in
Yeah.
order, before he signs his name.
Before he signs his name, and has, DEP done the stormwater permit by rule?
No, they just said they're gonna be applying for that. They said
Aha.
that at the outset.
Okay, so
So
all
it's a
these things,
condition of approval that likely it would be a condition of approval that they have that before they get a building permit.
okay, so all of this has not yet been done, needs to be done before the actual building permit is signed.
the initial building permit after they have a building permit for the spec house.
Right,
Any
Right.
other building permits,
Right.
yes.
Exactly, yes. So after, to do the other 13 or however many they're doing. Okay, so none of these have been done yet.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about. Thank you.
okay, do we have a motion to go through the review criteria? Are there more questions or comments? Second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Second here to pull this together. All right. Okay. Build a project as proposed. 14 lot, phase one. Result in undue water or air pollution.
Somebody has to move.
I make a motion, Sheldon.
For a second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor that it will not? 5-0.
No, she's not voting.
Bonnie is an alternate.
Oh, got it.
Does the project have sufficient water available for the reasonably foreseeable needs of the subdivision?
Make a motion that it has.
Second.
Will have. Thank you.
Yeah. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Will this project cause an unreasonable burden on an existing water supply?
Make a motion that will not.
Second.
Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor? 5-0.
Right.
Will this project, alone or in conjunction with existing activities, adversely affect the quality or quantity of groundwater?
Make a motion that will not.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? I think we have, I would just say we have a lot of backup material in our packet that addresses these. Okay, all in favor? 5-0. Will this project, phase one, adversely affect the quality of the surface water or unreasonably affect the shoreline of ponds, lakes, or wetlands?
Make a motion that will not.
For a second,
Second.
discussion? If not, all in favor? Has the applicant identified all freshwater wetlands regardless of size?
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Have they identified any stream or brook within or abutting the subdivision?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, favor? Does this development require that any principal structures be constructed 1 foot above the 100-year flood elevation?
Make a motion that will not.
That it will require,
Will require, okay.
so that it will. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Will this cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition results.
Make a motion, I will not.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Will this project provide for adequate stormwater management? Yes, that's what we're discussing is there will be a permit by rule before construction. It's likely condition. Do we have a motion that this will provide?
Make a motion, this will provide.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Will this phase one cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions through use of existing and proposed highways and public roads?
Make a motion, I will not.
Second.
And I think we had the traffic study, which was based on a much larger
Right.
project. All in favor that it will not? Will the project provide for adequate sewage waste disposal?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of that motion? 5-0. Will this phase one cause an unreasonable burden on town services?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Has the applicant made adequate provision for solid waste disposal?
Make a motion, yeah.
Any discussion? And it's basically using the transfer station. All in favor? 5-0, passes. Will this cause an unreasonable burden on the ability of the town to dispose of solid waste?
Make a motion, I will not.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Will this project, phase one, have an undue adverse effect on scenic or natural beauty, aesthetics, historic sites, significant wildlife habitat, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas, or any public rights for physical or visual access to the shoreline?
Make a motion, I will not.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Are these lots created so they won't have a depth to frontage ratio greater than 5-1?
Make a motion.
They will, yes, they will create lots with a depth to frontage ratio greater than 5-1, so it will. All in favor? Okay. Has the applicant demonstrated adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above criteria?
Second.
I think what's missing from this checklist I'm using is, will the project meet the phosphorus guideline requirement? I think that's a required finding.
In ours.
It's in hers, but I'm just going by this list that we.
Adding that to the list.
Yeah. That this won't. We have it on another copy.
That's not just under cause unreasonable water quality degradation.
Well, I think, Bill, there was something separate added at some point
Okay.
that,
They're considered two separate standards.
Yeah. and I think in the planner's recommended finding, she's we got that in there, so let's see where,
16.
yeah. Yeah. So it's basically as the applicant met the basic standards of Maine DEP Chapter 500 guidelines. I think that would be a satisfactory, well, plus what you've got here,
As conditions, they would.
as conditions. We have a motion. That's what we're saying with, so there may be needed conditions as to many of the other ones we addressed. All in favor then? 5-0.
I have one question.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the lot dimensions 5:1, was the question, will this create lots with length to width greater than 5:1? Is that the question?
Yeah, let's.
That's a spaghetti lot.
I know.
Yeah.
But I thought the motion was that it will.
Yeah,
These are not
it should be, it will not. Yeah, will not create.
Right, no, I heard that it will.
Yeah.
It will not.
Yeah.
It will not, right.
So
You
let's-
even talked, you said something about, I noticed
Yeah,
what the lots
we-
look like, they're not like this.
Yeah, so let's vote again on that one. Your motion is that it will not, your second.
Yeah.
And all in favor that it will not. So then we have some other, so basically this has to, there are other conditions which I think it's encompassed in this one. Will this project conform with duly adopted local regulations, ordinances, and the comprehensive plan? Yeah.
Make a motion that will.
And so this addresses things that are sort of in the findings of fact. I think somewhere, Isabel, you mentioned things like lighting.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we need to make a separate kind of vote, but it just means that all the standards have to be met, all the performance standards.
Yeah, just a quick, point of order.
Yep.
If it seems like you now went through your checklist and that everything passed, so I'm assuming we're moving toward approval.
Yeah.
That being said, I have drafted a motion around approval in my memo, page 3. So my memo is the one with the overall overview image of the site. Page 3. I would urge you to utilize that motion to capture the draft findings. We did add 2 additional conditions. The language around a deed restriction prohibiting the use of fertilizer containing phosphorus. That's when establishing new turf or vegetation on bare soil. And then maintenance agreements for stormwater management facilities as already outlined in their application materials.
And then the water district one, is that addressed in your?
Yes, I added that. I added a note about that onto number 6. Which was already all about the Water Association. I said an updated letter from the Water Association shall be provided to the code enforcement officer, indicating that all specifications have been met.
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Those being the ones that are outlined beginning on page 3, with those 3 additions to address the water district requirement, phosphorus, use of use of non-phosphorus fertilizers. And the third one was,
The addition onto number 6 of a sentence around an updated letter from the Water
water
Association.
district. We have a motion.
I move to approve the subdivision application of N63 Main Street LLC for 14 lots residential subdivision with associated improvement on the property of N63 Main Street. For the findings of fact condition approval of May 8th, 2025, with the suggested conditions outlined on page 3, 4, 5, 6, adding
The amendment to the water district.
added to the water districts, the use of non-phosphorus fertilizer, and the addition to number 6. Which I can't remember what that was.
That was the water association.
That's
Water association.
And just to clarify, you're including the maintenance agreements for stormwater management.
Correct. Yes.
As a deed restriction.
Yes.
Okay, any second on that motion? All right, so we can discuss that. I think everyone have a clear understanding of the the recommended conditions that have now been amended. That's what we're voting on. Anyone have any concern or confusion about what we're voting on? If not, all in favor of approving this phase 1 for 14 lots, according to the recommended conditions of approval with the amendments that were discussed. All in favor? 5-0. So Jim, you're gonna get us a plan
No, they
to,
have it right here.
oh, you were,
Oh, I'm sorry to be a pest. Added additional conditions. Is the
Yep.
registry going to accept it if we handwrite them?
Well. I have that many lines. I don't think you're gonna fit your condition approval on that.
Yes. Could we put something in the lines like reference?
Yeah, you could definitely do that.
Reference, yeah,
You wanna write that yourself?
probably.
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm leaving them. You're gonna sign them next meeting. Is that how that's working? Or we're gonna sooner? Or how's that gonna work?
Yeah, why don't we sign them while you're here?
Okay.
And then I would put in reference approval letter.
yeah,
And then I'll take it and bring it to the registry and get recorded.
yeah, we'll have a decision that also gets recorded, so,
Yes, decision, notice of decision.
So
No, it's a
they're gonna sign those tonight, what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay. Then you.
Registry want Sharpie or pen?
Just a regular pen will work. It just has to be a wet wedding. So,
I do have, and then,
You want to add that?
well, you're gonna have to.
yeah, reference notice of decision.
Yeah, you want to add that to it? You wanna- Who has good handwriting to do that?
I can do it.
Everyone says they can't read mine, that's why I'm jumping up.
Turn around and say hi to Rob and Chuck on the screen. Rob like that.
You know, rock it.
You don't require the conditions of approval to be on here, you're fine with it. For things like
I think that's, when they're so big.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Paul just had to bring in a whole second page,
Yeah,
but.
yeah. I mean, a lot of times they are on the, but I think it's reference
Yeah,
to be recorded.
yeah, I think that's.
I think by doing this, it gives them a chance to go file this permit by.
I
Revise the list and give it.
Get some muscles.
That language, that's like the one that's easy.
You do this. now we have it.
We don't have double. Well, but I was gonna say, is because she's doing this. Yeah. That would have.
Right.
Thanks, Bill, for coming in.
Hey, thanks, Bill.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
We'll put some lake.
You want to have.
Next star,
Same kind of problem.
next star inspired another engineer.
You're up.
They got rid of Hodgson, or who they have.
And somebody from Massachusetts.
Retired, right? That guy was retired.
Yeah, we talk. Yeah. It's gonna be much better.
I can make what's going on?
I'll write my piece.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Executive of the club.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's why I was telling Steve, yeah, Jim said how.
You know, I never thought about that once. I was.
I'll put 20.
It's worn out.
Is there, oh, yeah, one.
Not a Jen Kearney.
Get ready to wrap up.
You're gonna write on it. Sign it. So I had a conversation with Bill this week about these people in Lake Star, and the problem with DEP is they don't do pre-application meetings, right? So these folks go in and spend thousands and thousands of dollars.
They don't have the personnel to do the pre-app meeting.
I think we're gonna talk about this when we get to the flow charts.
Yeah,
Bill and I have,
yeah,
like-
yeah.
It's, and, you know, the stuff that I used to do for them, call and talk to the planner. You can't, you
Yeah.
can't even get through to talk to them.
My handwriting.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I will. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Thanks for everything, everyone. Appreciate it. Good luck, folks.
Yeah.
We're gonna need.
Process,
We're gonna sign it.
you know, I don't know how you can plan to develop.
One of my work is first meeting.
You make a big payment
Yeah.
and you hit all the roadblocks.
I mean, that's why we sit down with them.
Yeah.
I tried to say, I think you can have.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
They were saying. Basketball tournament.
Good luck.
Right? That's all. I mean, they might help out more. Yeah.
35.
I got a tough road.
Additional form. Funny you should say that, because checklist when I was growing up. Oh, okay, we'll talk about it.
They just read my motion.
Okay.
That has been by voice.
Yeah.
And it just references the findings of the draft, unless there's changes. But that-
As I say, these forms, I just copied, you go up and, you know, I looked for.
Right.
I think we covered everything.
So rather than going through each individual, they just adopt
They
it.
just thought they got in that guide over. So.
Well, unless somebody calls for
Call
that.
for it, yeah.
Then we
And first we go
would-
shopping center. All right. But I mean, I forget how many acres. Right, let's talk about. Then they tried to build houses. At this point, we have no new business. We expect that, give one reach on that.
Tony. Outside.
Sorry. So, yes, just so you know, I got, a application for an amendment to the Dearborn Ridge subdivision. This is something that some of you might have been around for in 1999 or something. It didn't meet our current frontage requirements. It's sort of a weird situation, but they are working with the surveyor. I had reviewed a sketch that their representative had sent me and said that that would seem to be ordinance requirements. So they withdrew their application when I explained to them that it wouldn't meet requirements and is not approvable,
Yeah,
and they will be resubmitting. Yeah. I'm not sure when.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of depends on the surveyor's time right now.
Okay.
You know, that would give more.
So then we can go to other business, which is planner's report on proposed process improvements. Live flow chart.
Yeah,
So you talked about this a little bit at the last meeting.
we did, yes. So we went through in pretty big detail the subdivision review process flow chart. And I'll reiterate that where this is coming from is really a desire from my end to have something that I can point applicants to that outlines the process for customer service reasons. But also, after a conversation with Bill Monagle, some of the issues that we're having is just around the time frame right now. So the current time frame of submitting things 10 days in advance, at least for subdivisions and the larger site plan review applications, is not sufficient for either of us, for me or for Bill. So what we had discussed was utilizing an extended time frame, at least for subdivisions, and also revising the process slightly to clarify that an application is not on the planning board agenda until it has been deemed complete by staff and peer reviewers. This is really in an effort not to bring things before you 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And I also really took your comment to heart around skipping work to come to planning board meetings. I measure my success not by how many projects are approved, but by, are we transparent to applicants? Are we transparent to the public? Is it clear what the review process is and what to expect? And part of that is not putting something on the agenda that can't really be approved, I guess is where I'm coming from. So in the subdivision flow chart, it says planning board subdivision review process. The recommendation is that they hold a pre-application meeting with myself and Bill Monagle as our peer reviewer and really person we rely on heavily for that piece of it at least. We did this on the A&O Properties subdivision that was recently approved, and that really just helped the process. We got a better application when we had a pre-application meeting, and obviously it was a fairly quick review process for you all. So this is sort of where I would like to start moving to. Of course, the ordinance allows for a pre-application meeting with the planning board as well as an option for both subdivision and site plan review. And then it would be submitted via email to myself. I would then coordinate the staff review. So both Bill Monagle's review, but also the review of any of our other staff members who currently weigh in on applications. So occasionally you'll see letters from the fire chief, police chief, public works director, code enforcement officer, whoever, as well as any third-party peer reviewers, all within this initial receipt period of getting an application. State statute for subdivisions allows 30 days for a completeness determination. I would like to take advantage of that. And then I would be the one sort of sending an initial determination letter. The ordinance does not give me the authority to formally deem something complete, but it would be sending this initial letter and scheduling them for their planning board meeting where they would have that review and setting up the site walk. And then everything else is sort of as normal. After that, I did also just clarify what happens in post-approval or condition compliance. So I know Bonnie had some questions around how do we get this information, or when is this information going to come in? Most of that is in that post-approval condition compliance period. And it is really just from my end, following up, making sure we've received the paperwork from state, state departments, all of the things, any Monmouth Water Association, any of these outside entities, before we release a building permit is typically the first part. But I also occasionally will have, prior to the release of the performance guarantees as sort of finalized timeframe for subdivisions as well. So that's where all of this is coming from. I want to be able to provide better service in terms of bringing things forward to you that are approvable and aren't going to significantly change throughout the review process. I don't think that's helpful for you all. And also be able to provide better service to our applicants and to the public.
Isabella, I have a question. How does this all relate to the one thing in the box, which is the DEP approval, which is the 6 months, 7 month, it's gonna be a year pretty soon. How are you gonna handle when they send the change? They, they're 8 months into this project and all of a sudden they say, well, if you take this house out or move it over here, then we can approve it. And then they review it again, and it could be another 3 months, all that time frame. This guy or this group of people is on the hook. Can we get them an approval still stating pending DEP approval?
So I'll just give you my personal recommendation. I'm not a decision maker in this sense, but it is always my recommendation that we condition approval on receipt of DEP permits rather than waiting for DEP. And the reason for that is actually, it's a little bit different than what you said. Most often, what is going to change the project is the local review process. For the most part, DEP isn't going to be suggesting changes to the review process that would impact our local.
Right, yes.
Or if they are, Bill has already caught them with our local approval. So I think in terms of a customer service piece, in every other community I work in, I recommend conditioning any local approval on the receipt of state permits. That both protects the town, we get the permits at some point, but also recognizes that the current staffing level at DEP and capacity issues.
I almost wonder if I seem to recollect that our ordinance actually says that they have to have the DE approval before we can approve it. Yeah. And we've sort of made ad hoc saying, make it a condition of approval because it just takes so long. But I don't know,
So
my worry always is that, are we missing something that DEP picks up on? I mean, would we have gone, if Bill hadn't kind of dug into the weeds here a little bit, would we have kind of missed some of these issues because we don't have that technical capacity?
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is really dependent on having good quality people like you and Bill doing this review. If we had a situation we didn't, then I think the planning board has to be more involved. But so if we have in here in the discretion of the planning board, a pre-application meeting with the board is required or something. I think we need something just to ensure that if personnel changes, that the board isn't stuck missing out on that opportunity to have that detailed conversation that you're now doing. Again, you decide to go work for DEP or do something else, or, we may not get the same level of expertise. I don't know, am I missing? I don't want to make more work for us. This has been great, to have you do all that work. It makes our job so much easier. But again, it's because you do the work. And if there's changes in how the select board views your role, and they cut you out of it, or,
But it comes down, Steve, she's done great work developing the systems that if she chooses to leave, whoever comes back, we go to the board of selectmen, says, we have to have someone who could help us follow this process.
yeah, yeah,
True.
yeah. So I don't know, maybe it's, I just wonder whether we just have to leave in the option that there be a pre-application meeting with the board as well.
So it's currently an option in the flow chart
Yeah.
as outlined.
Yeah.
And in the ordinance as outlined.
So the applicant would know that, they'd be made aware of that they could have a meeting with them?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is on both, let me just make sure it's on both. So it's on subdivision and it is on site plan, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is have, someone coming in on minor changes of subdivisions where they're like moving a building footprint or the driveway, that we can get them through
That's
without too much delay.
I have one thing else. I noticed, and it doesn't make too much difference on this past one, but in other ones, we've put in somewhere that there is a 30-day waiting period for appeals. We didn't put that in there.
Yeah.
That's a state item, yeah, so folks should be aware of
They
that.
should be aware somewhere that they can't, if they start, or if they get approval
It's at
prior
their
to that,
peril.
it's on their peril, on their dollar.
So they're rushing in to record.
My next step is to update our standard conditions of approval, and I think that's probably when we should include.
Thank you. That's where I was going.
Yeah. I just want to respond to your comment about the ordinance and DEP approvals.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at section 6435. If the development will require a permit from any state or federal agency, including those listed below.
Yeah.
Copy of the permit is submitted prior to final approval.
Yeah.
So that to me means a condition,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like the conditions are the final approval. Addressing the conditions
Yeah.
is the final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's say we've kind of finessed it a little bit just to
Move it along.
move it along. I mean, I mentioned today, I had a long conversation with Bill about these poor people. Bill said he got contacted by not only the gentleman here, but on another project, they were asking him, is my engineer competent? Should I be looking for somebody else? And Bill said, no, it's on DEP. It's really there. These people you have, they know their stuff. It's just till they get that kind of guidance from how DEP is viewing it, but nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, I think other than provide the customer service of Bill and I meeting with them at the
Yeah.
outset, having these conversations throughout the process. And really, the 30-day period is something that Bill suggested
Yeah.
because he, as you can imagine, doing this for many towns, is kind of swamped with reviews right now. And so needs, like he suggested, 3 weeks, a month would be more than sufficient.
See, we had a lot of pressure at the time of the last revision. Compress the time. The town manager and some of the select board members felt, they were feeling heat because, we were doing our due diligence and
So be it.
yeah, well, now you come around and you say, that didn't really work so well. Right?
I keep,
But they're not gonna be the ones that stand up and say, oh, well, I was the one that forced the issue.
Yeah.
I will say, I keep running into something odd in Monmouth that I do not run into in any other town, which is some odd expectations around planning board agendas. I got I'm not calling anyone out, but I got an email from somebody at 9 o'clock last night asking to be on tonight's agenda, which is obviously not appropriate. And
Yeah.
I will just say, that would not happen to me in other communities.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where this feeling is coming
Yeah.
from.
Breakdown in code enforcement.
Okay,
Yeah.
So,
You can't get them, get an answer, so.
so they come, yeah, so I explained and they're fine, but that has happened to me multiple times now, and so just having these things to post on the website that I can link to and say, no, this is
Sorry.
the process. This is what you can expect from the process. And I will say, I only have our bigger projects right now. I didn't do one for Shoreland yet, but if you're interested in this format, I can do that as well.
Shoreland's a little easier in some
Yeah.
respects, for the most part. I mean, sometimes you get the overlap of site, like one of the girls or boys camps becomes site review and
And sure.
shoreland. So those get more complex, but. Well, it sounds good. Everyone on
I had a
board?
question on the non-residential and multifamily.
Sure.
When we come down and that and getting over to the far left-hand side, you've got the town staff shall publish a notice in that.
My print is just,
I
I
don't know how
printed
many
one, but it didn't
people
print this
get
well.
the journal and actually read it and that anymore.
I can always print another one.
Add in there the posted,
Yeah.
the journal and on the town website.
So town website is a standard practice.
This is how it came out for me.
Minimum journal is
Yeah.
actually specifically. That it has to be posted there. And for subdivisions, it's also a state statute. You have to post it in a newspaper of general local circulation or something.
Okay,
So it's a state statute and local ordinance requirement.
okay.
You know, and that is a problem the state law has to now address. because,
The circulation is going away.
Sunday only.
This week, I think I got the Tuesday newspaper. I subscribe to the KJ, but whenever, it
I
just
got it
doesn't.
I got the Tuesday on Thursday.
Yeah,
Sunday paper on Monday or Tuesday.
yeah, I mean, so what is
No Monday.
what is the
As long as
benefit?
the comics are gonna.
They're gonna have to figure out something that people are gonna see, and I don't know how you address that.
Because more people are, in quote, tech savvy and would tend to look at the town website.
Yeah.
And if it is posted on there, but I just thought that we should probably note it in that box also.
I can do that.
I read the KJ online and I skip the last two pages, which is where.
All those
all
notices
that-
are, well, I tend to look, yeah, and I read it online some nights if I have time. I feel I've got the energy to go through it. It's just the way the world has changed.
And in
In
the
2
spring,
days,
summer,
I'll
when you
find out.
don't need it, just by.
2 days, we'll find out that we have.
Yeah, that's right.
We won't get it until Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
The
it's,
Water Association has gone, have to do a posting for our annual meeting. We just mail it to all of our members.
Yeah.
We do not, we used to do it in the KJ, and we did it in the advertiser. Yeah. Now we just mail it.
yeah.
That was.
Bite the bullet and mail it. But we were doing it, return receipt, so it's $10, $11 now a pop.
Yeah. And you get these projects, even with the butters, like if you get something on the lake, even though you're not in a butter, you could be affected by a campground or some
Yeah.
significant development, it's,
People will not sign return receipt.
No, they won't.
They
yeah,
will refuse it.
yeah,
And,
Well, the post
get it
office
back.
won't deliver them either.
yeah,
Right.
We handed them out at the meeting.
Yeah.
Because the postmaster said no receptacle or no one there or address unknown. It's because they don't go to the door, or they don't leave the sticky
Yeah.
note and.
Or like in our case, we have a road, we've got 11 people on the road and that, and the mailboxes are up on Coppice Road.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mail guy isn't driving down the road from the left.
yeah.
Exactly.
on the subdivision flow chart. The blue circle above the big box, applicant submits 9 hard copies, final whatever, for the planning board members at least 1 week prior. That's fine, because we pick them up, right?
Yeah, so are you not? Okay,
You want to add a 1 week to that? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, like, do you want additional time to be able to review the materials?
Yeah, because actually we don't get them till Monday because the town office isn't open Friday.
True. Okay, so maybe it's more like
10 days.
10 days.
Hmm.
Okay. Sound good?
And you have in there that they're gonna provide an electronic copy or,
They've provided electronic copies to me throughout this whole thing, so I've done all my review on my own.
but what I mean is, you know, in addition to providing 9 copies, they gotta provide an electronic copy.
Yes,
That's way up on the flow chart.
Yeah.
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 So
Up here.
you're suggesting 10 days is a better time frame for Darcy to come in and do the packets and for you all to pick up the packets, and then you are probably looking at it about a week in advance.
Yeah, it's nice to have the weekend to look at.
Yeah.
A weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Before, yeah.
Sitting down relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so if I can get there on a Wednesday, if we can have everything there on a Wednesday, I'll go in on a Wednesday, like I did this week. I emailed you guys because I had time Wednesday and said, the packets are there, you can pick them up.
But if you got them the Thursday
Yeah,
before, we
Right.
would have had them a
exactly.
week in front.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
A week and 3 days ahead. Also on that one, in that green box, upper right-hand corner, you make reference to, third-party inspector.
yep.
What's the feasibility, third-party inspector or CEO?
Well, currently our CEO wouldn't do that.
Current,
Third-party inspector is actually an ordinance requirement for the construction inspection. Yeah,
The CEO could do it if if he or she was licensed by the state. However, there's multiple towns, et cetera, that don't have a CEO, or they have a CEO that does the paperwork and that, but they're not licensed to inspect either the building and or the plumbing.
so it would have to be a certified CEO or something on that line?
They could, but like the one in Manchester used to be, but he left. The guy they have now is on vacation until, I don't know, the end of the month or something like that, from November. So they don't have anybody.
Yeah, no, this is just an option, to give somebody an option. If you guys, David's on vacation and you're up to your armpits and stuff, this is gonna take a back seat.
In theory, yeah, for the local area, but in theory,
It hasn't happened.
no, it hasn't happened, and in theory, there are, out at the state site, there's a whole list of third-party inspectors, and and their contact information. So
It's not gonna happen in Monmouth, let's put it that way.
If he's on vacation, I hire him as a third-party inspector. I'm just gonna wait till he comes back, because you're not gonna wanna go hire another third-party
That's right.
inspector.
Exactly.
It's gonna cost you more money.
and this is just around the end of the year,
Right.
between the end of the summer construction
Right.
season and December 1st. So presumably they have plenty of time to submit this report by the third-party inspector.
But you're not inspecting that right now, right? Like, because code's supposed to, correct?
Oh, yeah.
What, for stormwater, erosion control measures?
No.
Right, that's up to the code enforcement officer, isn't it?
Yes, it's up to the code enforcement officer to do it if he's certified to do it.
Right,
They will call either him or me to go and do this inspection at the end of the season. And they'll pay us to do it. Just like Livermore is paying, because they're don't have a code officer, so
all
they
third-party
hired one,
inspectors are
us.
third-party erosion control certified, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
but I am.
Right. So that would be me as, an individual hiring a third-party inspector. We want to make sure that that third-party inspector is certified in erosion control measures.
Correct.
Yeah, someone may not be aware.
Right. No, well, I guess, I get what you're saying.
Every excavator, if you own an excavator, you're stormwater certified.
If you want to work on waterfront, yeah. Yeah.
That's like, we're not responsible for the location, if you will,
Yes.
of the structure on the lot.
Right.
If it was like either too close to the road, too close to one lot side,
Yeah.
side or the other, inspecting the structure, not the location of it.
Right.
So we're good with these?
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks. Just so you know, before they get posted, I have to get the select board to approve them. I also have to get the select board to approve the bylaw change that we approved at the last meeting anyway, so
Right.
I have a couple of things that I need to get on the agenda for.
Perfect.
Okay, I guess we can move on to public comment.
Good.
Yeah. Anyone on the Zoom have any public comment for the planning board? Okay. I guess we.
Most of the time.
Mostly adjourned.
Didn't have too much.
What he said.
Yeah, we're adjourned.
Didn't Larry, didn't say sorry.